afternoon. This is a public hearing scheduled before the Athens City Planning Commission. It's July. Oh, it should be January 4th, but it's 2007. See, I got the wrong month, but you got the wrong year on there. It's 2:05. There is no need for a quorum to have a public hearing, but there are 4 members present. But we do take sworn statements. If you plan to say anything, what do you raise your right hand and say what you're going to say is true? Stand up, boys. Okay, all right.
You affirm.
You can swear, affirm, say yes, okay? All right. The public hearing, which was advertised in the paper, concerns Herald Square, a major subdivision. The public hearing was requested regarding a proposal to replat 1.104 acres of J.C. Campbell's Fairfield addition to the city of Athens. Is there anyone here who wishes to speak to this? For, against? Nobody wants to speak. Not even you people who have the subdivision.
We're for it.
They're for it.
As long as you're asking.
As long as we're asking, I thought maybe you were not for it. All right. Steve isn't here, but there was a memo which we got. You all have this memo we got. Is there a new one in
We're
here?
gonna have to start paging these someday.
Yes, it's this one here. He says he's received all the documentation, the fees. We have deeds. We have all of the variances he's listed. There's 6 variances needed, and for the size of the lots. And then there are 2 that are needed for parking, concerning parking. The thing that we got before in the mail is just a 2-page thing. This one is a much larger thing with a law attached to it, which we didn't get because of the mail and the day. There's no mail, extra day of no mail, so we didn't get it ahead of time. All right. Anybody on this board have a question? Did we see the plans for this? Where are the plans for this?
That's it.
This is it. Okay. Let's look at this. We need to look at this. Look at this. Did I cover up here? I keep covering up the mic. That's why I have one on there. Okay. All right. Yeah, this was what we had described. What wasn't there some question about back in here? Or was there?
Oh, there's just 10-foot alley.
Yeah, alley. Yeah, there's an alley. And this is our access over here. And over here.
Where is access over here?
On the street back here.
Yeah, oh, okay.
Yeah, okay, back here. Aren't those, isn't that where they go in there?
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. Okay.
This is they kind of look in, this is the front.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's because they're almost like out at the other Westfield where they're all connected together. Are these to be sold individually, or are you going to rent them? I forget.
Either or,
Either or?
yeah. If you've got any questions going about the,
No. I think we, from where you showed it before. Just other copies of them. Okay, this is the same thing, another copy for you. they were gonna go out and visit with his son over the holidays, I think,
Well, they may not be down. I
wherever
don't know,
his
I haven't
son
heard
lives.
from him.
Yeah, this is the same thing.
If they had to come through Denver.
We're covering up the,
They might still be out
We're
there.
rattling papers.
we're rattling. Well. How many people are there? Was there any, they had the techno, did they have the technical hearing a long time ago on this? With, must have been. It was a long time ago, wasn't it? Yeah. With the, there wasn't any. This has been around for a while. Hmm?
Is there a detailed thing going over?
I think this is all the same. Are these all same drawing?
I think what was requested was 4 sets.
Yeah, that's it. He was interested in detail of.
I thought you had one that had the different elevations, like east, west.
We did submit a
I
plan.
thought you
which
did.
had the
I thought I
elevation.
saw that.
It was most, portfolio of,
Yeah, long time. This is all the others.
University
That's all
Estates.
University Estates there. What's over here? That's
This is University
Estates. Now these are 4 sets of the same thing here. Okay. Okay, this one isn't any different from. This goes to, city council have to have public hearings too. All right. How many people are in this, going to be in this? Will it hold, have bedrooms or?
there are 16 individual
Units. Some are 2 bedrooms, some 3 bedroom, or any 1 bedroom?
They all have a minimum of 2 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, and every one of them has a 2-car garage.
Why does this list of variances have, in the first list, it says lots 1, 2, 5, 8, and 20 variance from section so-and-so? If there's 16 units, why are there 20 lots? Have you got Steve's memo? Look at number 1, at the bottom of the first page.
Does that have to do with lot width?
Yeah,
It's
yeah, but look at
lots.
the lots that are listed there. It's a lot 20. If there's 16 units, why are there 20 lots?
Well, they're
I think you made a mistake.
Okay. What should it be?
So they're all.
Yeah,
Let's
yeah,
see.
okay. But you could have more lots than you have units,
Right, there's only
Yeah, but-
16.
16 lots
It
total.
would be this one, which is the center,
Okay,
this one,
okay,
and this one,
okay,
and that one.
okay. And
Those are center.
how are they numbered?
There's another,
start with-
there's another sheet. Hang on a second.
Just two sheets.
One of these would have the lot numbers.
These are the same, I think there's two sheets. I thought.
I think they are.
One of these could be the survey.
Right there.
Is there another file on this one? someplace?
These don't reflect the new ones.
See, there is 2006 there, but there's not any other date on it other than that.
Yeah, these are not these are the preliminary plans. We submitted final plans to Steve. You should have. These are the preliminary plans.
Where is Steve? These, are we sure these are all theirs over there, not mixed in, and nothing mixed in over here? Were they folded up or rolled?
I don't know. Paul Morris submitted 4 sets of plans, 4 sets of the same plans, too. So I could go back to my office and get them, but I didn't bring them because I gave him the original. These are the preliminary plans.
I'm not meaning to be picky about it, but if we're gonna recommend a variance for lot 20, there needs to be a lot 20.
Well, there isn't a lot 20. And where's Steve?
And where is,
He had another meeting, must be running long.
Well, he has all the original plans that we set up here, so.
yeah. Well, you usually have a file of things, and we don't have, this is all we have, is this and
They've all been
this.
submitted. Paid for.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't have here what you should have here.
Well, that's why we're having this public hearing. Somebody's ringing. Turn off your phones. I don't like ringing. Leave if you ring.
You should have the elevation.
Yeah, all the
You should have the
thing.
surveyed plans.
Yeah, because that's what these were seem to be,
These
not
are-
have enough
These are what we
information.
use to, well, you've got, I don't,
Yeah.
I've got a copy at the office.
Well, they have them at their.
That's what Steve brought up
Steve has
too.
them at his office.
Yeah, he probably picked up the wrong ones.
If you wanna call down there, I'll run down and pick them up if that's what it takes. We'd rather not,
You don't wanna go on for 2 more weeks and wait.
I think 4 years is enough. And if you wanna call down and see where they are, I'll be happy to drive down and get them.
I don't know, would anybody down there know? Well, he'll
rail
go check, rail check. Okay. Do you have any, well, that's one. Do you have any other questions about these, any of these things? Do we go anyplace else? That's the only place where it mentions lot 20.
You
Yeah.
can
Yeah.
obviously see by the map, there's only
Yeah.
16
Yeah,
lots.
that's
Yeah.
okay, yeah, as long as,
She just,
I mean,
But that's a good
but
point.
if we're going to recommend it, we need to recommend the right
The
lot
correct.
numbers, yes, that's.
do you have any other questions? He's repeated this all the way through. No.
Well, this is all public hearing stuff anyway, so.
Yeah,
What we could do,
is go on and
We could-
let them wait.
we could,
I'll run down. and-
This is a public hearing part of it, so it doesn't really,
I'll
I
run
mean,
down
it's
there
not
and
the,
Well, if Ray's,
Let Ray went to call, and he'll be back in a minute to tell you about it. Yeah, see what he has to say. This is the only public hearing we're having is on your thing, so.
Are we still in the public hearing?
Yeah.
Well, yes, we are. Do you have anything you'd like to say?
Not at this point.
You're for it. You're for this thing. You told me that already. Yeah. And there were new people who came in. Did anybody else have anything they wanted to say? You might be. Hmm? So here it is. Okay. We can adjourn the public hearing and we can sit and talk to each other for 10 minutes until it's time for the meeting to start. And people can come in and set up all their things and that sort of thing. All right. Okay. Good afternoon. This is a regular scheduled meeting of the Athens City Planning Commission for January 4th, 2007. It is 2:32. There are 4 members of the commission present. Mr. Kanashigi is not here. So we do have a quorum. If anybody is looking for a vote, you know that you're going to have to make sure there are only 4 of us here, and there's a possibility that there would be a problem with some things requiring 4 votes. And some people don't vote for things, and so we can't guarantee that we will all vote for or against, but just warning you that with one missing, it might be a problem for you. If you plan to say anything, please stand and do you affirm that what you say will be the truth? You can swear or affirm, whichever you want to do. Okay. All right. Are you back with all your papers? The first case is 0214 Diversified Properties. Herald Square, PUD approval. We just had a public hearing, and in the hearing, the only comments were that there was a question about the numbering of the lots. There was an error in the memo that we had. Okay. I think, do we have the right papers now? The mayor found a set of papers, John, and are they the same papers that your final papers? That one? Does that match that?
November 10th?
I can look at what you've got.
What's your
November 10th.
date?
11/13. That's Mars.
November 13th. We'll bring,
There's another one from the surveyor, which is 11/11.
They're more current than ours.
yeah, bring those.
These are the ones from your office.
Well, these are 11/10.
Well, okay, let's take a look at it.
Let's put this someplace so we don't get into it. Is that one?
that's the
That
one that
goes-
just arrived from downstairs, so.
Put that with that.
Okay, so this here is all the legal descriptions of the lots that have to be run by the surveyor. And this is actually the plat with the,
Lot
as you
number.
asked for, the numbered lots, 1 through 16.
Okay, this is the one that was the problem with. Lot 16 has a side yard setback of 0 to 22 feet. 10 to 15 is, so this is because of, 0 is because
Right.
of that. Okay. Then that ought to be true for 14, 13, and 12, too.
1, 2, 5, 8, and 1,
2.
2.
Well, where is 2? Why is 2 not in
5.
this point number 4 where the side setbacks we're talking about? Why is 2 not in that variance?
This is,
It ought to be, I think. 2 has 0 side setbacks, right?
Correct.
Okay. 3, 4, 5, and 6. 5 isn't there. 7, 8, and 9. Now 8 isn't there. 10, 11, 12, 13 ought to be there also.
20. Why only those first ones have a problem with the
14.
frontage?
15, 16 is down here.
Could be there closer to the road.
2, 5, 8, and 13 are here.
Yeah,
signed
that's
up.
true.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's okay that these ones that I listed are listed in .5. And then 16 is listed in .6, so that's okay. That takes care of the side setbacks.
But the front one where you had 20, what did you decide that was?
Well, that's 13, lot number
13,
yeah.
13.
Yeah,
This one?
it's this one.
Because these are, this is,
Yeah, it should, see, it's these middle
Mhm,
ones.
the
and-
middle
And
ones.
13 is the one that's missing.
Side setbacks.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, well,
Front.
it was the 20 feet frontage.
Oh, the frontage, right.
Yeah.
yeah.
Or 30.
And then the stacked parking, all of them are going to have stacked parking, right?
They all have a two-car
Two-car garage.
And then they also have 2 spots in front of the garage.
Okay,
And then none of that's on the city right away.
okay, and that counts as stacked parking?
Right.
Okay. And then the variance for residential use above the ground floor, so.
That's B2 or B3,
So, yeah,
so,
I think.
so that's why it has to have the variance. If it was an R1 or 2, it wouldn't need the variance.
Okay. Well, I don't have any other questions about it.
Should I leave, these are, what I
From-
just got is
From
from
Steve's
Steve's
office.
Right.
Yeah,
So
okay.
I leave these with you. This here is the plan, once again, from the surveyor. This is the plan from the engineer. It's basically the same plan, only this indicates lot numbers and legal descriptions. This has more to do with the tree plan
Landscape.
Yeah.
and the infrastructure.
Yeah, okay.
Once again, all we're
Right.
doing here is putting some sewer. Everything else is existing.
Right.
We've already got that EPA,
Yeah, the PTI.
and it's just a very simple extension.
Right, and we'll keep those together.
The city people have looked
That
at.
the other set there?
So I've been told.
Let's get rid of those. I mean, not mix
Well-
these up with them. We'll keep them, but not, this is what we want
What
to
I
keep.
found out had the sewer.
Did it?
extension with it.
That's
Had the landscape plan,
Yeah.
it didn't have a surveyor.
Right.
But it had these numbers.
Yeah. So we
But
need
didn't
to
have a
make
survey
sure that these go back to
descriptions,
the right spots.
Well, even
Okay,
when we approve this, then a Mylar has to be done.
Right.
Yeah.
It goes to council.
So we're gonna do the Mylar once.
Right.
If we get this far.
Right, understood.
So I'll leave this with you and with this.
Yeah, just put in this, right, you have, okay, what is, do you have any questions? Do you have any questions? You want to, what do you want to do? Go ahead with it? They have to have somebody
I
move
move,
to do something.
I move that we give final approval, no, final approval, or we?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Final.
Okay, then
Final.
give final approval, PUD approval for the Herald Square Diversified Properties with the recommendations for variances as detailed in Steve's memo, with corrections, with the correction in the first one of lot 13 instead of lot 20. Is that sufficiently complicated?
With all the variances listed in here?
I
Right.
think this is, as I understood it, it's a major subdivision rather than a PUD.
He
The
says
PUD doesn't-
major subdivision,
Yeah,
major
it's not PUD
subdivision.
because it isn't of size enough. to
No, it wasn't big
qualify for
enough.
a
All right,
PUD.
so we're giving, so I amend my motion to say we give final approval to it as a
Yeah,
major
it says,
subdivision.
it says it on the thing here, but it should say subdivision. Okay. Well, is there a second?
I'll second.
Is there any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so now go to, okay.
Thank you very much.
You don't want to see us again. Okay, I'm going to put all this stuff here. This is, Melissa, this is all this
Is
stuff
this everything?
that's from, is
Okay,
from
that belongs to Steve.
Steve, and I put this, the things that I had too with him, circle the corrections.
Okay.
Here's another one in case. All right, now, we are at 0602. That was such a long.
13.
13.
It's not
Yours,
20.
the first one, 02. This one is 06-17 University Estates. Plat revision of their major subdivision. And they want, let's see, there are two things here. What do we have?
First, we have to do the plat review.
Plat revision, okay.
Can I ask a question first before we start? Is any of this under litigation at this point? Because I haven't really been able to figure out from the newspaper accounts what is and what isn't.
I don't believe,
Because if it is, I
It
think we
is.
shouldn't be talking about it.
no, this is not under litigation. There's litigation about the PUD, but not on me.
Oh,
But it's more of the zoning stuff and everything. It's not about the revision
of the
of the
plan.
overall plat
Okay.
at all.
So this is the, we asked to have the plat revised and updated and make it work. Does it have the streets off that you wanted off? Go over there, yeah. Or come here if you want to do it, but say who you are in there, okay? And then-
My name is
then-
Fred Holmes. I'm the Vice President for Government Relations for University Estates, and we are, as you mentioned earlier, here to talk about the proposed amendments. Made this page. We'll start right down here at the bottom where we have the Elizabeth A. Conrad property. We propose changing that, although right now title has not processed, so it has been reverted back to the way it was originally platted. So really, there's been no change here. So that is back to the original portion. Then we've submitted to City Council letters to vacate Greenview Lane, which is this road right through here. But along with that, there is an easement that we want to submit to. We want to propose a temporary, non-exclusive easement is hereby granted over the emergency access for public and private emergency vehicles to use that easement area for access between University Boulevard and Armitage Road. The owner of the property on which emergency access is located shall repair, maintain the gravel road thereon until the easement granted in this note terminates. The easement granted in this note shall terminate automatically upon the platting or other dedication of a public right-of-way connecting University Boulevard and Armitage Road along generally the same alignment as the emergency access easement. One of the big questions here was if vacating this road, would that landlock any of the land? And the answer to that is no. You have road frontage here, here.
What about lot 4?
Let me, if I can turn to page 5. Old Armitage Road, or the current Armitage Road, it's not old because there's only one Armitage Road, comes right through here, and there's over 75 feet of road frontage on lot 4. So,
In here someplace? Here? Where?
On down here.
On-
It's a
on-
match.
Down here?
So this is all lot 4.
Yeah.
right.
What's this line? That's not a lot line.
I don't believe it is. This line right
It says number 4. This is number 2 for number 2. So you have, what is this down here?
That's a continuation.
But
It goes down here to page 5. Yeah, it comes down.
but what is it?
Yeah, but
What is it? I mean, this looks like the end of the lot to me. This looks like this is this lot
It
here.
must be a control line or something. It's not the shape of the lot. Because it's sort of 11.6 acres.
Well, what we should have on the final is a squiggly line here and a 4 down here.
Yeah.
That way, there is no confusion at any point if they're merged together.
well, look, this says Southwest Corner Farm Lot 104. Is that
That's
the
just a control
farm lot
point.
is what? Oh, okay.
Yeah, basically the whole thing is. so-
What?
How many acres are you showing for 4 there?
11.65.
Okay.
That's definitely not 11 acres. but
No.
This is 9.
It was originally what, Ray? 10.8?
10.83.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that line
So
is
this-
an
So
error.
it's got to come
So
up.
this
that line
line
is-
changed a little bit, is why this acreage is a little less.
Well, vacated is a change.
Yeah.
So anyway, getting back to the lots, the important thing, and I think, is that, well, we can't have any landlocked land.
So they've got access down here.
They have
to
access to
Armitage.
Armitage Road.
Yeah.
That's correct. The second road to be vacated, it was going to be Stone Ridge. And again, we have a note on that. This provides, the easement provides emergency two-way access for emergency vehicles. Altamont Drive is going to be moved up here. By eliminating Stone Ridge, it makes an extremely long cul-de-sac. There's going to be approximately a stone road put in this area at about halfway point, and there's another easement very similar. Temporary non-exclusive easement is hereby granted over the emergency access for public and private emergency vehicles to use that easement area for access between University Estates Boulevard and Altamont Drive. The owner of the property on which emergency easement is located shall repair and maintain the gravel road thereupon until the easement granted in this note terminates. The easement granted in this note shall terminate automatically upon the platting or other dedication of a public right-of-way connecting University Estates and Altamont Drive along the generally the same alignment as emergency access, or unless an alternate route is proposed and accepted. This is a temporary road. In the future, the Stone Ridge will be connected here, and that will eliminate the need for that temporary road. But right now, we need emergency access for emergency vehicles. All of these lots have been changed due to the vacating. There's also a vacating request for Stone Ridge, Altamont Terrace. This then becomes the new Altamont Drive. We also had lot 7 that had to be divided into 7A, 7B, 7D, and 7C. In the previous request, we had road frontage of 60 feet. That's been changed to 66 feet. Trying to think. We have also listed the location of the lift station for the sewer pump and also for the water booster station. On the next page, Lot 52A was created, and we also added 56A, and that has been noted on the plat. Do you have any questions?
Well, this sheet that you just turned over now, there are some changes to it, is that correct? They're not all on here? Roads, I mean, you're talking
The roads are
about,
all changed.
well, this is changed, but you're talking about some kind of a road here, doesn't show on here.
Well, it's temporary.
The temporary road.
so they're not wanting to plat that temporary road.
No, but where is it show in any drawing what it's gonna look like, or?
It's just an emergency access.
Yeah, but, where?
It's not on it.
No, well, would it be nice to have a little thing that says, hey, this is where this is gonna
Well,
go?
because there's two purposes of this road, as I understand from conversations with Fred. One is, yes, emergency access for emergency vehicles, but primarily it's going to get used by equipment and deliveries and everything else, because you don't want to pave this surface, you don't want, building all this, you don't necessarily want to put the heavy equipment on that section of the road for damage. You want to bring it in from a service road standpoint.
What about down there? At what point are you going to extend? I mean, Altamont is going to have a new stone ridge coming down over there from the cul-de-sac?
From this point right here, it will come up along this way. I can't really give you a time of when that'll be.
But are you going to use the line that's platted, that's drawn on it there, or are you going to plat it a different way,
We'll
this
probably-
line?
Be very close to that line, Fred.
Yeah, it'll be very close to this line here. But that, I mean, we will not abandon this road, temporary road, until that is put in. Okay. Because we have to maintain access. I mean, at first it's gonna be for the construction, but even after that, we have to maintain access.
For emergency, yeah.
I think at some point, Fred, you're going to have to add some easements to get to the water pump station and a sewage lift station, an easement of egress. And then obviously, if there are any water or sewer, because this pump station sort of sits down here, and it's not on a roadway, and that water sits down here, and it's not really, how does the water line from that pump station get to where we already have easements in the road surfaces? So we're going to need some kind of easement for that. You know, I know there was limited time to get it together, but we talked about that Friday. But
Right.
we're going to have to do that at some point.
Mayor, if I might remind you in our conversation, we have the AEP already has an easement going up through there.
Right?
So as soon as I can get my surveyors to.
Right, I just wanted to, for the record,
Right,
I know we'd had the discussion, but I wanted to make sure that
okay.
that's something that remains to be done.
This is the only phase one, the plat that has to be.
And maybe I missed, you created, where it used to be just one lot 6, and there's now a 6 and a 6A.
There's now a 6 and 6A, that's correct.
This thing needs that.
Yeah.
Hmm?
That needs corrected.
It needs to be, yeah, because down the road, somebody will say, what are we doing here? Okay. What are these others? These are all those.
I was just looking at
That's this one.
Yeah, this match sheet probably should also be labeled 4,
Yeah,
because there's no label. That's not
Can't
a lot
tell what it
number on
is.
Even though we got the match line, it wouldn't be bad to put a 4 on it also.
Okay.
And then you know,
Terry.
Fred,
Take
there are
this
those
out.
squiggle type lines or something that says these are connected.
Well, this whole line should come out there.
Well, I don't know if it's,
Well, unless it's important for something, but it looks like it's 2 lots.
I
And anybody
understand.
glancing at it's gonna think, oh, well, they
Right.
made a mistake, this should be lot number such and such.
I don't really understand what
The line
the
is,
dotted lines are on there for either, so.
this is a solid line that's on here.
that other, I don't
This is dotted down here. I know it's stupid.
know.
Well, this comes
Should
down
be a
here.
property line, because those are 2 different names.
Well, this
That's
connects
not
to
in their
that,
plat.
doesn't it? This
That's not
con-
in the plat.
Yeah, no, but this thing here connects to this, right?
Right.
yeah. This is an easement or something?
Yeah, the continuation of this green.
Oh, okay.
Is
Oh, I-
that-
That's probably what created the confusion, was when they created they abandoned the road and created the dotted line. Here's how the original went, down this way,
Well, this is the road here,
down to the road.
Armitage.
Well, I don't know if that was,
Let me see. Can't go from there to there.
that was still.
This was the way it was been corrected.
This thing. I don't understand this. Somebody tell,
It's just a continuation.
It's-
well,
Well, it's really confusing, because if this is the match line here, what is that
This
continues
was
to
what
this?
this is the
Yeah.
original.
Comes
So
all the
this
way
is
up to
Armitage
here,
Road.
Peg
actually.
where's
is-
Armitage Road?
on down
Well,
right here, I think.
Armitage actually comes across the tracks right there and goes like that, and then pretty much just stays like that.
well, because on
And this is
this,
4, lot 4, this is a piece of lot 4.
Mm-hmm.
But
and this is something
else
over here,
Yeah, okay.
but Armitage doesn't show on here anyplace really. Because if it's here, you have to leap over here or leap over there.
Right, this is continuation of railroad tracks there.
That's railroad tracks, but the road is,
Yeah, the second crossing is right here,
Okay.
and then you turn, actually it's over here, and you turn and go out. And then we separate, our new road goes this way and the old road
well,
goes.
don't you think you ought to show that so somebody looking at it might know what you're talking about? This is very confusing,
I
I
know,
think.
but what we have to look at is, this is the current plat that's been recorded, okay? A copy of it. And it depicts it much in the same way.
Yeah, it
that
depicts it like
match
where it
line
doesn't,
does.
there's no road,
There's a
there's no way
few
to get to
extra,
it.
a few extra things here. But you can also see that in the original, this 4 went all the way, that line wasn't around. And
Well,
there's that
I know.
dotted line, it was going all the way down. So you probably want to clean that up.
Yeah.
Does this easement go all the way down to Armitage Road?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Yeah,
Which is here,
This-
doesn't show.
yeah, right, I'm beginning to be with you.
Yeah, before it was like that, now it's like that. So
Okay.
there's just a slight difference.
Yeah, okay.
Really, sheet 3, match line C, is not being amended at all. It's not part of the amendment, right?
But these are the things that would be
Maybe
helpful.
a little
to get rid of
curve.
if we
I
could.
don't think you can say that because the curve's a little, see, we had to put this easement where that
Oh,
Yeah,
road is, just the way it
so it's
is.
not quite the same as
So
it
it's
is on that.
just a
yeah.
little bit behind that.
Yeah, let's see if we had this over here and you put it on here, like that.
and do you have a new
But
curve
you see, it
table on
doesn't
this?
go anyplace.
It's like-
I just didn't know if you-
With that, yeah,
Okay,
but it
that's
doesn't
fine.
go
Just wanna make
anyplace.
sure.
I still say it doesn't go anyplace.
But sometimes it's helpful to look at what exists today and platting it. We can see that that line and that dotted line are not in the current plat. I can't think of any reason why they were added. No reason they added.
This is left over from the old,
This might be
Yeah,
helpful,
that's
Peggy. This is what was platted in 2000. So you can see the configurations. I mean, almost all of the changes are above University Estates Boulevard. And you see these 2 lots changed a little bit because of the elimination of the road and everything. This line was moved some. Lot 9
Yeah, this
is
goes
a little
all the way down
smaller
over there.
than what it was
we were 10 and
6.4.
11.
Yeah. 10
Let's
and
see,
11.
this is different, that's different.
That was, yeah, and see, this all gets eliminated, this open space gets gone.
Uh-huh,
This open space is converted into 7D, except for a 50-foot barrier still, that now then comes down here to the new place where Altman is. I think this line pretty well stays the same,
Yeah, up to about right here.
up to about here, and
But
then
see,
it...
I think showing that
goes
that
off.
just confuses the issue too.
Well, but you also have to know what you're changing.
Yeah, but it's, they've
this
changed so
gets
many
into-
times
I
and
know.
back and forth that I would throw them all out and do a whole new one.
That's what you
That's
got.
what you got.
Well, I know, but it still has things on it that aren't right. See, this is what bothers me. Every time I look at it, it's all, this is it, except there's this one thing that we have to do. And I keep asking for a thing that doesn't say except. This is it.
I think what the mayor was saying here, just to clarify things, some of these survey things that are on here should be taken off.
That's right, that's
Yeah.
what I'm saying,
You know,
take them
so-
off.
We fully agree with you, and had we known that, we would have addressed it, but didn't know it.
Well, and if there's a way to indicate that this is, down here is also Lot 4, without confusing the issue from the surveyor's point, it would be nice to, if you have to put it in parentheses or something.
Well, if you would take this thing, if you would take this thing, whoever drew this, instead of putting this over here, put it over here, and then when you take this thing, and you're gonna look at this, then you just pull this sheet up, and this comes down here, rather than it's over here and you're over here. I mean, it's just makes sense to me,
Yeah.
to be neater, because it's,
To keep it scaled, if that can be done.
well, I don't see why not. I don't know why he made it that big. I mean, he could have just,
Put all that curve data.
well, that, I know, but there's room to put that in there, right over here. So all I would have to do is pick this up and go like this, and then I wouldn't say to you, well, this doesn't make any sense to me, you know, how does it go? It just seems like good order to put it below where it goes.
Anyway, those are the main problems with it, right?
Yeah,
That
well-
keep you from figuring out where
Well-
Lot 4 is and
Yeah, I just think,
and where this temporary road ends up.
the thing that happens all the time in these things, you go down the road and something will come back 3-4 years later, or they'll have something and people say, well, what is this? And I don't understand it, because we have people we have these things submitted to us, and then the changes aren't made, and somehow they don't get recorded properly, and then 4 or 5 years from now, or 10 years, 20 years from there, everybody's sitting there thinking, what on earth is going on here? Because attention to detail, there was not enough attention to detail. So, but that's how I feel about it.
I believe now, we're at a position where, you know, we can obviously clean this dotted line off here and prove the contingent of that, and so we can move forward.
Because you still have to sign the sheet. You won't sign the sheet until all the corrections are made.
Right.
Do we need to do something to approve it?
I don't know where we are on that.
Well, yes.
Yeah.
because
Where are we?
I think that
Here I am.
what would we have to do is move to approve the amended plat, subject to city council's vacating the streets that are eliminated in this plat revision. We can't vacate streets, only council can. So we'd have to have that condition on it, and that easements be shown to the water pump house and the sewer lift station for egress, and that Lot 4 be clarified to indicate its
Boundaries.
boundaries. Those would be the exceptions I would put on my motion.
I'll second that.
Okay. During the discussion, anybody have any comments in the public? Okay. Okay, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? No. Vote for it with the corrections made. The second part of this is the University Estates preliminary PUD approval. And then, okay. And then High Point is the next part of it. Is this the thing? Let's get those out of,
Right, I wanted to get those
get this
cleared
over,
up and out of the way,
so we don't get them mixed up.
Right.
All right. Okay, here's the preliminary application for this. This is the whole thing, yeah.
Now, at our last meeting that we discussed University Estates, we were presented the overall PUD designations for the whole 800 and some acres, and it was spelled out into the various exhibits that are on that page. Some of these are years away, others are closer. And I think the planning commission at that time said, come back with a revised plat so we can see where everything is. And I think we left it pretty much at that point.
Yeah. But we didn't feel we should really go into approving all of those the whole way through, that whole thing. We were just talking about whatever was on that plat, where the line goes.
Well, yeah.
Just that part.
Well, that's,
Is that what you're doing, just the part you just showed us? Or you're asking for everything, or just the part you just showed us?
We're asking for,
So all these things here?
one of the big issues last time was you wanted a map. You mentioned earlier,
Yeah.
map previously or behind. This reflects the new elected plat. The commercial, condominium, single family, retail. A lot of this, on this portion of the plat is what we're applying for is a preliminary PUD for the whole 830 acres. And once that's approved, then it's my understanding we'll come back in for final approval on individual pieces of it. That's my understanding. Is that correct?
yes, I think that the only provision I would think on that is I'd have to check the length of time within our code. But most times a preliminary approval will expire, is it after a year, as I recall?
I thought so.
And then they have to ask for continuance. I mean, we always grant them, but technically a preliminary approval is only good for, I think, a year.
Is there a limit of the number of continuances?
No.
That could be asked
It's
for?
at the discretion of the commission.
Can leave it as well.
Okay, now this is the part we were just dealing with.
Yeah,
right?
mm-hmm.
The part that we just approved, does that include the R3 down here at the bottom, this part? Does it include that? What we just
Some of it.
approved was up here, right? This part.
Correct.
And that wasn't part of it?
What was approved only went over to the previous Greenview Road. None of the rest of that. That's
This
all
isn't
in
in
a
it.
future
This
phase
isn't
to
in
be
it.
platted,
Okay.
Yeah.
or replatted, rather. It's platted, it has to be,
None of this
would
is platted here, is that correct? This is up to Green.
I think, didn't we determine, Mayor, on the zoning part of this, that we knew that in future phases, lines would have to be changed to match that?
Yes. That was the way that we worded that recommendation to zoning, because we recognized that future platting would occur, and that at that time, zoning would be adjusted to the new plat that was presented and approved. So that by approving this other one, it's the same thing, I mean, or adjusting to wherever those lot lines are.
So this is a request for preliminary approval of all the rest
The
of it?
whole thing.
The whole thing.
I think in the exhibits, they had a list of what they
Was in
are
the-
currently planning to develop in each one of those
Yeah,
exhibits.
there was a list that went with the, there's more stuff here.
Well, we got boxes,
Boxes.
boxes and boxes. They probably have trailers, and file cabinets and buildings.
No, this is about the road
Right
bond,
here.
what I have here.
This is, that's,
That's the road bond for Athens,
Yeah.
isn't it? Oh.
yeah, that's all that is. But there wasn't, some of those earlier things we had, it said what was gonna go in each one. I thought about
Well, it's referenced here,
here.
exhibits, but diagonal, where the exhibits are. just says Exhibit D on it,
That's
which is,
D, there are documents, homeowners' documents. That's
There,
a,
I have a little map with lines and
should.
a list of approximate timetable.
yeah, they, what's it before? I
this is
remember that.
H.
That was- And these are just plans over here, there aren't any things are in there. Just a thing like that, that's, you know, that's that.
Yeah, this is,
There it is, it was
There it
down
is.
here. No, here it is.
Okay.
It was there, what they think they're gonna do with those things.
yeah, and date time.
Commercial. We had one of those before, I know that.
Yeah,
Not in my little packet with me.
yeah, I've got it. I didn't bring my
I didn't either.
notebook of stuff.
Are those the same? That's a newer one, isn't it? This one? This
The
one
land
is
use,
that.
this is,
That one looks just like that one.
Right.
That one's the
Yeah.
earlier one, I think.
It's
isn't
a
it?
la-
Or
well, it's a
later.
land
It's a
use.
later.
which was used in preparation for zoning.
Zoning, yeah.
We've done that.
Well, what is anybody preference on this thing? Or any questions you want to ask other than this? I don't know.
I don't have a whole lot. I mean, I think that
Yeah.
part of where my position has been is that the total development is predicated on an overall development plan, that people are looking at purchasing property or homes with an idea that, yes, the rest of this will be developed in the way that the developer has presented. And I think that by approving the preliminary plans of all of these different phases that will occur over time, is just a recognition and maybe some degree of affirmation to future buyers that it's also the planning commission's intent that these are preliminary approved, i.e. we approve of the concept, subject to the final details. So I think that it gives the ability to market the overall development some more degree of credence that it is going to get accepted by the city to do. And therefore, I think that's why the developer really wants to do that, because you really have to look at this as 800-plus acres of a plan with open space and single-family and multifamily and everything a city has except
No place for poor people.
metropolitan housing spoken for.
Right.
That's, I think, the reason for the overall. I think what we do, if I understood things correctly, this is a preliminary, would be a preliminary approval, and it would be really not many conditions on it other than just they have to pay the fee. That's it.
Now, within that, now this is for the whole thing, but then they're asking for a
And the
section
next
of it to
step-
be,
The next
a
step is
section
to
of
take
it to
the
be
one, the
done.
High Point Village, and say, it
This
would be
one.
in the grand total, and say, we want to move toward final approval on that, and ask the commission for any input they would want on any final submissions, which is a fairly normal thing we do usually at the preliminary, but this is the only one, as I understand, that's far enough along in design
It can be brought up.
to really be brought up in that vein.
Right. That's why I wanted to make a clarification at High Point, that we're not here tonight. We're here this afternoon to address the farmland.
Yeah, mm-hmm.
It's on the agenda, but that,
Mhm.
we're not to that point yet.
Yeah, we're not quite there.
You don't wanna
Clarify, If I
discuss it.
understood you right, though, when we come back for our next project, other than the villas, we start at the final,
Yes.
right?
I think you'd initially have a meeting or a series of discussion saying, hey, with the commission saying, we're going to be getting ready to develop this as a final within 6, 8 months or whatever, this is that's what that is. We've changed, if there has been any changes, what do you want to see in it? What are you going to particularly be looking for? Just have, because all subdivisions and other major developments have that kind of a preliminary discussion with the commission before they turn all the architects and spend all that money in design, in final design.
But my understanding too is that until we do the preliminary, we can't get to that stage.
Preliminary is always first.
Yeah.
And this, for the future projects, will eliminate that step and save a little bit of time in getting through the process.
Has construction begun on the High Point Villas?
Yes.
Well, how can you do that if it hasn't been approved? Or should you do that? High Point, this one, I thought we weren't ready to even discuss this one yet.
Well, I think what we're here trying to get is an approval for the preliminary for the whole concept. Does what's being proposed, does it fit in with the overall plan? And, you know, what we're saying is that it does. You know, the condominium, the single family, the recreation, the commercial, the retail, it all fits in an overall plan, is what we're trying to say.
But then if we give a preliminary approval for the overall PUD, that means you can go ahead and construct all the rest of it. I mean, if you've already been started, if you've already started on the construction of the villas,
That's not really the way I read it. The way I read it is that we have to come to you for preliminary approval for the PUD. And that's really
Before what?
you're-
before what? I mean, before you start building, or before you start selling, or? I just don't understand what how this process is working if we haven't given a preliminary approval for the villas, but they're already in construction.
Well, I think the issue that you're talking about is in litigation, and I think there's some other issues outside this process that, you know, will be determined through the litigation. But I don't see how that has any impact on the preliminary PUD approval.
Well, again, I guess I would say I don't understand what's in litigation and what isn't, because the newspaper accounts were not that clear. And that's all I've had about it. So if somebody who is involved in the litigation would clarify it for me, I'd really appreciate it.
I think, Mary, you held up a High Point letter there and stuff. We have turned in with Steve, it's probably, that stack looks awful big. Some of the final stuff has already been turned in to Steve, and it's been forwarded to the engineers. So that part of it is in the process. But I think, actually today, what we need is to keep things going is the preliminary approval on that PUD. So that's a necessary step.
To answer somewhat of to evade your question and answer it somewhat, I really can't discuss the litigation in a public meeting either, because I'm being litigated against.
But
I could do it in an executive session, but I could not do it in a public meeting. So I really can't comment on that. I think that you may wish then to say within the preliminary plan approval that, you know, it's your understanding that they won't start, you know, I don't know. I mean, if
Well,
that's the concern you have.
I guess I'm not prepared to vote for the preliminary plan approval of the whole thing anyway, at this point,
Okay.
with the litigation going on. So if the rest of you want to be my guest, but I will vote no on it, because I think it's premature.
Maybe I can help clarify that for Dr. Connor. The The thing that probably is not quite understood is the fact that this project, none of this project is in the city until July 19th. All of the aspects of the High Point Village was permitted and handled through the state before going into the city. It's our contention that we're a valid non-conforming use for the villas, which has then nothing to do with the request for the preliminary for the whole PUD. Now, as far as the answers to that, the court will be giving that conclusion. It is in litigation at this time.
Thank you.
But it still is in the 3-mile limit.
Yes,
So,
yeah. So
there-
we
I
still
mean,
would have been.
that's an active, I mean, I think that's in litigation because,
Well, I move that we table this request until the litigation is resolved.
is there a second?
I think, I think what we're trying to do, I believe at this point too, is trying to get the whole process back in sync. And then, they're, at this point, the important thing is to get the process to work, regardless of what other issues we may have. We do have a process in place.
My worry is that the litigation could go on for an extended length of time. And I would prefer to grant the preliminary approval now rather than with all of them, and let them continue on with trying to do the PUD, and then they resolve the litigation.
Well, but if we give, it strikes me that what's going on here is if we approve this, and that says a green light to go ahead and we can start and do things, and things will be built or things will be started, and then the whole thing of, well, we were outside the city and we didn't have to do this, and of course, there were things that had to be done, and I'm not sure that, I mean, I would have to have ironclad guarantee that they're not going to go in there and build something, and that's if I say that the concept is fine, that means that's what it means. I don't want anything done until all this is settled, personally. I mean, this is how I feel about it.
Let me offer something in between a little bit. Why don't we table it until we've had the opportunity to meet in executive session with legal counsel?
That sounds fine.
That sounds good.
I'll make that motion.
I approve. I second.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Okay. So I think that should then, the high point, we'll just leave that whole thing will go here. Okay, here. The next case is 0613. Summit at Coach Run.
Maybe I can get some
An
stamps.
update in anticipation of final application for PUD. Sorry, something's tickling me.
Yeah.
Who's going to do whatever?
He has a whole new box, so I thought I'd get rid of the
He
old
asked me to
box.
bring these down today, distribute them today, they're like novels. Or probably get them to Steve somehow, if he could get them to you.
You can distribute them if it's easier, you've got them. I'm not going to read it right this minute.
Yeah, we'll try to listen to you.
Where do you build under my house where I store these things?
Exactly. And I don't even know if everybody wants the full size. These are engineering documents.
I don't need that, I think.
Okay, I can give those to Steve.
Yeah, give those, and yeah, let us have these smaller things for my house. I have one room that's being overflows with things. Gotta clean it.
So there's engineering information in there?
That's
Yes.
in there.
Yeah, earthwork and storm and sanitary.
Yeah, you can
Okay.
get that.
That's the on-site stuff.
We'll pass it on to the appropriate technical review.
Like to have the copyrights to make your copies. Keeping business.
What about this?
I'll give it to Melissa.
He already has a copy of this.
He has a copy.
Updated information,
So don't lose it.
Hello again. I don't know if you're ready for me. I'm Rick
Yes.
Kirk with Edwards Companies, Brian Pearson from the Edge Group, and Chris Schroeds is here from the Edwards Companies also. We're here with lots of detail and to follow up from our preliminary development plan approval, which occurred last September. This is the final development plan, and we wanted to discuss some of the progress that we made and answer any questions you may have. Since we last met, we have made some realignments of the buildings due to soil analysis, and we've located all the buildings, building loads, and the majority of the parking on the stable rock beneath the buildings. As you all know, Athens area has slip-prone soils, and so we have conducted an extensive amount of soil engineering, deep borings, and Ryan has realigned the sites so that all of our buildings are on rock. We also had discussions with council members and have met several times regarding a development agreement which would impact not only our site but the off-site development, which involves an extension of a water line from Blackburn Road through our adjacent property, neighbor's property, and through our site down to Richland Avenue. The engineering is, civil engineering is nearly complete on this. We have sanitary sewer that is designed. We have had storm sewer analysis. Detention is designed. We have a crossing along the Coates Run Creek. We've had hydraulic survey, and we have delved deeply into the floodplain, and our design is well along there. There's so much information here. I'm free to have any feedback and questions. We presented to you that you've just had a chance to look at a thick booklet that encloses all of our required submittals, lease agreements, land, buffers, sanitary, soil analysis, engineering capacities, and that sort. That said, we also have begun our architectural design, and we have a rendering here that I'll show you. That is of our clubhouse. This large element here will be viewed through the, now that I have it up here, I'll move it to the floor. One of my design intents in driving along Richland Avenue is that as we look from the Richland Avenue corridor up to the building, we have a visual corridor that draws your eye up. As we have referenced buildings and the ridges and some of the architectural historic elements and of those wonderful buildings, we've tried to take a cue on how to design our site. Ryan and our team has spent lots of time and energy trying to come up with a design that will be attractive and inviting for not only our potential customers, but for our neighborhood and folks that drive along Richland Avenue every day. That's been an important part of our developments in the past, and as we presented our resume of things that we've done in Columbus and other areas, we will continue to try and pursue that here, and we're excited about the prospect. That said, I'll let Ryan fill in the missing links and any feedback that you have. We are planning to come back for a public hearing and here in the January meeting and proceed with the hopes that we can meet your expectations and proceed to council here in the next month.
As Rick mentioned, we did change the site plan, and I wanted to go through and just kind of fill everybody in on how the site plan has changed. Rick noted the major thing that changed the site plan was the fact that we needed to stay on the rock, and the ridge comes out somewhat like this, so that as we cut, we need to stay on the stable soils. Then the fill on the hillsides also changed. We had a 2-to-1 slope on our preliminary development plan. It has changed to a 3-to-1, and some of the things that did to us is it actually made it to where our parking lots and our, the amount of grading we got into, we didn't want to get into the riparian corridors anymore, because that's one of the core beliefs of the plan, is to protect both of the watersheds on the east and west boundaries. So in doing that, we did reduce our parking numbers down from a 0.95 to 0.85. Along with the site plan changes, we lost 18 units and 18 beds. So now we're down to 257 on the units and 878 on the beds with 700 parking spaces. We also, on our preliminary development plan, we didn't have a building over what we think is the location of the mound. Now the building is on the location of the mound in order to get the parking required and the density. We managed to keep the integrity of the plan as far as the riparian corridors, the view from the public of the community of Richland Avenue. We maintained the entry drive and the entry experience coming into the site. And we have a mail and bus stop location at the top of the hill, and we have another, what would be like a sign or a sign pavilion that could double as a bus stop at the bottom of the hill, because the grade on the entry drive is at 12%. The sidewalk that's associated with it on the other side of the tree lawn is at 12%, which doesn't give us our ADA accessibility. However, having a location at 2 points where we could stop and shuttle back and forth, it would allow everybody to get down to the Richland Avenue corridor and shop the retail if they need to. As far as the engineering goes, our engineering is well on its way. Rick mentioned the off-site water line that would be coming through the adjacent property. Some of the good things that does is it eliminates a couple booster pumps off the existing city water system. It provides some water for the OU property, as well as, I think, a few others down the road, down Blackburn and
Correct.
In that area. Our sanitary sewer is actually tying in, there's a siphon where the sanitary running down Richland crosses the stream. And apparently what we've heard is that at the siphon, somehow when it floods, it causes some backup of the sewage. We're actually able to come on the downstream side of the creek and tie into the sewer on the other side of the siphon. So our development would not impact the backing up of the upstream part of the sanitary sewer, which is a good thing. And in doing that, we also are providing additional capacity to service other land around the area, which is a benefit to the city and the community. The earthwork, we're still exploring, we're still doing testing and borings, and they're still analyzing exactly what is under the topsoil. They're going to write some specifications on how our fill will be engineered to sustain the slopes, and we should have that here next week or two, I'd imagine. We'll get it on as soon as we get it. Rick mentioned the stormwater. We've already sized that, and it's checked out on our engineer's standpoint. Our civil engineering, we've already set up a meeting with Burgess and Nyepel to start the review process. So we will have a meeting on the 16th. The public hearing is on the 18th, so hopefully we can have a little bit of a dialogue started by the time we have our public hearing, just to make sure everybody's in line.
Our hope there is that we can have a completed set of documents so that we present something to Burgess and Nyepel that doesn't have loose ends. We did have a meeting today that will modify the access to our neighbors over here, but substantially that shouldn't change the layout of our buildings. It's just going to move them over a few feet, and but we expect to have a thorough set of documents for Burgess and Nyepel.
I think that's pretty much the majority of the plan changes. Oh, one other thing. On our preliminary development plan, we had a 40-foot perimeter setback around the entire multifamily parcel. Now we have one location where a corner of the building gets to within 23 to 25 feet of the OU property as it angles back into our property a little bit. So we're not exactly sure if this would be the front yard setback and this would be considered a side yard setback, which would mean it would only need to be 8 feet, or whatever the case, we're asking for a little bit of, we're asking for a 23-foot or a 20-foot setback at that point. The remainder of the site, we're keeping all of our buildings off of the 40 feet perimeter guard that we had on our preliminary development plan. Parking is in the 40 feet. I think on the preliminary, we even kept the majority of it out of it. I think that's at least that's the majority of the changes. I don't know if it's all of them per se. I guess what we're asking today, we're just here to update and give an informal review of where we've been and where we're going. If you have any comments or questions, or if you would like to see other information, I don't know exactly how the process works. I don't know if Steve Pearson would get in touch with one of us and let us know that we need some other engineering studies or whatever the case may be. But, I guess we're looking to answer the questions in any way we can and as quickly as we can.
Where's the house? Is one house coming out of here? Is that shown out? The Tenoria house?
Yes, the Tenoria property is actually included into our parcel.
It's right up there.
Very top.
There.
The Tenoria house is actually sitting like right
in here?
Yeah,
So
this
it's
little
shown
piece right
off,
here.
okay. It's off out of it.
I think that's in the book, Ryan, isn't it?
In the book, there's the
Well,
agreement as
yeah.
well.
real estate purchase agreement.
It's,
But no other houses will be removed from there, is that?
that's correct.
In the final development plan, we have some text and some plans that show what we're proposing as far as the buffer treatment. As we presented in our preliminary development plan, we're trying to preserve as many of the trees at the property lines as we can. That's the reason for the 40-foot setback. There will be a few, I would say, thin areas compared to the rest of the 40 feet. And in that, we are proposing to use there's some existing Norway spruce up on the hilltop right now in the Greenbrier, right just below the Tenoria's house, that we're proposing to plant more Norway spruce and white pines to keep it consistent with what's there. And we're more than willing to work with landowners at the time of planting. When we get into this thing and start doing the construction, at this point in time, we went up and we did some tree surveys up in here to locate the Norway spruce so that we can save those. But the thin areas, we won't really know until the time of planting. And so it's our intent to get in contact with the adjacent property owners, work with them on the placement of where they might want them. And the plans we're showing are to show general quantities and the intent so that we can make a commitment and move on.
The tree commission might have suggestions about native plants that we could use too.
That's the other thing. We still need to meet with the Disabilities Commission, the Tree Commission, Burgess and Nyepel, and we're planning on doing that here in the next 2 weeks before that public hearing so that we can press on before and get some feedback at that time.
I've got a couple of questions that may be in the book, but one is this terracing between the driveway and the clubhouse?
Yes.
These wrinkles?
Right, if you remember the one image that we presented in preliminary,
It was
I could probably find it in this book a little bit
It
quicker
was-
than the other one.
Yeah, it was in some place they did it, some
We
portion.
didn't do
yeah.
it.
You were
is a,
going to or something.
it's a
We can't take
plantation
credit
in
for
South
that.
Carolina, Milton Place, that we're using for
Oh, yes,
inspiration.
right,
We're
yeah.
trying to provide some
Yeah.
community artwork back, and
And
so
the other,
that is the intent there.
Yes.
the other question I had was, originally you mentioned something about the possibility of some commercial property down at the Richland entrance.
And that is still the
that
case.
still a possibility?
You'll find in the packet, there's what I'm calling a sub-area plan that designates this is parcel A, the plan that we're getting approved and moving forward with right now. Parcel B, which is the commercial up in the front, it already has the B3
Oh, I
zoning.
see, yeah, uh-huh.
We're asking for the land use approval and to get the rest of the project approved. At the time that somebody comes forward that wants to purchase this ground, then it would be more like the normal process of, if it were a straight zone to B3, there would be some code review, some state review on the plans to get the building built. We did change it a little bit. Under the B3 zoning, they allow 0 or 100% lot coverage, and we're putting in there that it would be a maximum of 40%, similar to the rest of the site. And we've given some, they're not exceptions, they're over and above the standard code. And much like parcel C, we still have that in there. It is a flex parcel, and the reality of parcel C is it's on the slope right now. And it looks like it's 5.7 or 5.8 acres that could be developed. It would actually be a little bit smaller just because of dealing with the slopes. And, the net usable area is not 5.8. But it's one of those, it's a what if that keeps it flexible. And the intent of this frontage treatment also is to give a front door to the multifamily behind without having another user really impact it. And we're proposing that we would set up an architectural review committee that would have representatives from the apartment community, the landowner of these two parcels, whoever it may be at the time. It would have jurisdiction on what these two uses look like so that it's not detrimental to them back behind. So they would be part of the review process once something came forward.
Could you look at this picture here and tell me how far down you're going to cut the top of the hill off from us? Well, come on now, here you have
I
me
can't
looking
because I don't know how
west.
big the,
Well, here's that old school, it used to be the school, and the houses
we
are
have about
here.
100.
So this is going to be that much, is it going to be down like that?
At this point, and this is shooting from the hip somewhat.
Yeah, I'm not asking for, written in,
From Richland Avenue up the hill to our clubhouse, the elevation changes about 100 feet.
from what it is now?
And then,
No.
to the existing, I think, would be another 30 feet on top of that. It's pretty much the same as what we had in preliminary development.
But,
So you're talking about 30 feet.
so you're going
The
to cut.
majority of the cut,
It's gonna be-
the average might be more like 20 feet,
Yeah.
I think.
Well, see, that last group we had here, I was up in those mighty hills and they're all gone now. Just keep cutting them down. This is what I don't like. So that's why I wanted you to show me this.
I'm going to grab a photo here.
And as we explained in the preliminary development plan, in order to develop the hill, that's where the development will happen.
Yeah, you have to go down to the
EDA and
rock, but,
Yeah.
One of the things I'd like to at least see, because you're going down to a .85 parking ratio per bedroom, and I know you have student market type apartments at University of Kentucky, Ypsilanti, Toledo, and what kind of experience do you have there as to the numbers of people that have cars? Because obviously if they bring more than
In Ypsilanti, we have a
0.85,
.74 parking ratio, and
I mean, actual cars or what?
that's how many spaces we
Spaces,
provided.
but are
And-
they all full?
Well, they are full, and in that particular
There's nowhere else around
project-
here to park.
Yes, not in Ypsilanti either. And as part of our agreement in that particular site, we made a deal with the city that a year after we were open, we would review and hire a traffic engineer to review the parking, because there was different opinions about whether it would be enough or not. And they just recently conducted that, and our .75 has been sufficient. So there is certainly the belief that most people have cars today, but in fact, some people still don't. Some people walk to class and those kinds of things. So it's worked well for us.
And I think one of the differences between the Ypsilanti project and what we're proposing here is Ypsilanti, we didn't have an agreement with the city to use public transit. And
That's
on
correct.
this one, we are proposing to use the public bus system.
Correct.
And
One of the things I wanted to show in pulling this out, excuse me, Ryan, was that this is an aerial photo, and you can see the green space and then the adjacent area, which is the site, which is, the logging that's going on site has certainly removed the vegetation and created a situation where you have some erosion issues. So our plan represents trying to save, of course, the land around there, and then this Tenolia's property is up on the tip here, and the house would be removed, but the idea is to keep those beautiful spruce trees as part of the plan. The cut that we have on the site has certainly been a topic of discussion. We are concerned mostly about keeping the buildings on stable ground so that they don't move. We have done that, and the fill that we have designed from the past plan to today is a more gradual slope, as Ryan mentioned, from a 2-to-1 to a 3-to-1. The balance of the site should be consistent with our neighbors at Carriage Hill and consistent with the kind of site plan that's over at the Ridges.
one other thing, as we add parking, or need more parking to the site plan, essentially what it does is it pushes our 3-to-1 slopes out into the creeks a little bit more to where the riparian corridor would be lost, I think.
We're not going to lose that. But
well, I mean, I don't mind. I understand the concept of not having 1-to-1, because as you go up in numbers, yes, I agree. But at least if we had some data as to other places and how it works out, and then maybe we want to do the same thing Ypsilanti did after 1 or 2 years of full occupancy, take a look at it and see if we have a problem. I mean, I don't mind looking at a variance for that. I just want to be able to have a justification for it, based on fact rather than guess.
We can present you the information that we have from our existing properties, and it's worked well.
Anybody have any questions?
Thank you.
Are you going to send us a copy of the engineering information you send to B&M?
I think we're going to inundate you with information.
It's pretty much going to be this, only might be developed a little bit more. And
Hydrocalcs and all those tributary maps?
we don't have that documented exactly yet. I know that we have the stuff that the other project, the Campus Edge, had gone through on Coast Road, and we have our hydraulic engineers looking at that.
Okay.
You know, they need to sign off on it, so they're doing their study over again. So,
Okay.
I think from, as
We
move on from
we have
here-
most of that, Ryan.
Right, we do have most
Yeah.
of it, and moving on. As we move on from here, though, I think the overall book that you have, I think what's gonna happen is we'll do some supplemental packets that keep updating this thing so we don't hand out novels every time. If that
Good.
works.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. 0619, Tom Lovell rezoning request. Is anybody here on that? Nobody's here.
Well, he said he wouldn't be.
Said he wouldn't be here.
Anybody else want to speak?
So-
Does anybody else want to speak to this question? Sue?
already on the record.
Yeah, he's on record as being opposed to it. Okay. This is going to, we have another request, we will, from across the way, so we keep that in mind. We have an information that was, when the case came before the Planning Commission. Were you on it there when they had that? I wasn't. This one, 1988.
No, I wasn't either.
Sarah, Laura Rose, Ron Chapman, John Myler, and Nancy Hicks listed on here. In 1988, there was a long, all kinds of information about that area out there, and that they did not rezone, that they left it R1, if I understand. We haven't, do you know if we've had anything from Fred Weber? Nothing else has been?
I
Steve is in
haven't
here,
seen
so-
anything else.
Yeah.
There's just this one sheet that's, that
Well,
apparently he
Well,
had submitted the
We
other
would have to have a
information.
public hearing.
we'd have to have a
Right,
public
yeah.
hearing again on the thing, yeah. I personally, well, and we also went through this before with the apartments they wanted to put in there about the traffic and that sort of thing. I think that we're going to have to look at both sides of the street at the same time personally, and so, this is how I feel about it though.
Well, you want to just continue it?
Yeah,
Yeah, let's continue it.
but I can't put,
I move to continue this.
Second.
okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
I'd like to go out and take one more look at
Move it up on
At
the
that.
agenda next time. Keep it IRA, because they don't have to sit there all the time.
Tell me when this will be continued.
Well, at least till our next meeting, but I'm not sure then. We
The
want to
next
go out and
meeting
look
will
at
be
it.
the-
Next
the
meeting would
18th.
be the 18th. 2 weeks. It's the first
I
and
think
third.
part of it will depend upon Mr. Lovedall's back.
Yeah,
'Cause
and,
I would like to hear from him.
yeah, because he's written letters on that, but he's not been here to discuss it. And as I said, I don't think we can approach one side of that road and not the other side. I think it's going to have to be, in the earlier thing in 88, they considered it spot zoning is what they determined it was. But I think that whole section there is going to be affected on either side, and I just am concerned about that.
I'm sorry, but I don't understand what you mean by one side of the road.
Fred Weber wants to go, he wants it rezoned on the other side, right at South and North Blackburn Road, and Mr. Lovedall wants it rezoned on his side, that side of the road.
But they are two separate neighborhoods.
They are two separate neighborhoods, but they affect each other because traffic would be coming right, if we rezone both of them,
Oh,
it's going to go right there on that one spot of the road, and
and it's a bad spot
it's a
already.
bad spot already. So I think when we think about one, we're going to have to think about the other, even though they're different neighborhoods. And I agree with you that there's a difference, but, okay, so we'll at least look for, check into the next meeting to see if we can do it.
Check, why don't you call the mayor's office just before the 18th and find out if it's on the agenda? Because Melissa will tell you. Right?
Okay, and, all right, we have case number 16.
16 days, that's not.
It can't be
It must be
16.
6:15.
It can't.
Yeah. Sorry.
It was 1916 when we first heard this case. I don't think so. Okay. All right, you've all been here too long. Okay, this is University Park Castle Pines, clarification of subdivision versus condominium and applicable regulations. I don't know, can we do this? Do I know what those are? I'm confused right now.
Hi, Tony Ferry.
Well, we have the county planner.
Yeah, the county planner's
You
here.
guys before.
I know that's what I don't remember now.
This is,
What are you calling it now?
okay.
What do you want to
Give
call
you a
it?
little presentation here. I'm here to propose and develop a condominium project in the Plains. I previously came before you to propose a subdivision on this property,
which at the time your assessment of the project was not something you would approve. There were many variances I would have to conform to and other issues that made the plan not feasible. I have since went back to the drawing board, and I am now proposing to build and develop this condominium project called the Village of Castle Pines. I realize that you will review these plans. This will be on private property. All utilities and the roads will be maintained by a private homeowners association and also managed by a professional management company. I have since met with Rich Castler, the Plains Water and Sewer, the Plains trustees, and the Plains Fire Department. They have reviewed the plans and have given me a preliminary okay, subject to review, obviously, from the county commissioners. And the county commissioners recommended that I get an okay from Steve Pearson and Bob Eichenberger. I met with both Bob and Steve. Steve recommended that I present the plans to you, which is why I'm here today. Bob has also recommended I come today, and Bob has reviewed the plans, and Bob is here today, and Bob has recommended that I put certain easements into the plans, private easements for the utilities and the road, which under his recommendation and whatever you guys say I will do. So I guess basically at this time, I'm looking for some kind of a preliminary okay so I can go back to the county commissioners and get their okay. And basically I'm kind of confused on what your jurisdiction is on the project, and what I need from you guys to proceed forward on this project. I've been getting a lot of mixed views on this issue, and I look at other condominium projects that were done in the Plains, and they didn't have to come in front of you guys. But on advisement from people, it was best that I come and talk to you guys about it.
I guess the question is the appropriate status of a condominium as opposed to like a planned unit development or a subdivision or whatever, and how that affects what approvals are required.
Right, and I'm not asking for a PUD or a subdivision or anything like that.
Yeah, I think basically at this point, what we can do, at least in my opinion, the best thing for us to do is seek advice from the law director on the status of the condominium under the 3-mile limit and
Is there such a thing as a condominium plan?
a condominium.
I mean, there's a subdivision, there are minor and major subdivisions, there are PUDs, but is there a category?
Yeah, condominium's a different category.
It's not a...
Because it's a group of...
It's describing a group of buildings.
No, it's a legal entity.
Yeah, it's a legal
That's what
entity.
makes it different.
But it's
all on private ground and
Yeah,
privately
well, it's-
maintained and private roads. Utilities are all private. Everything managed and housed within the homeowners association.
Yeah, that's what makes it
I'm
confusing.
trying to follow the proper steps here. I don't want any problems that I've seen other people have.
How big is this? What's the...
There'll be 36 units.
No, the acreage or the size?
There's
what is-
right around a little less than 4 acres there.
4 acres? Must be on here someplace, but I'm not seeing. You want to tell us about it?
Well, I can
Because you've talked with them.
On Monday, we had it to
hopefully
the first
clarify,
Yeah.
not confuse the situation.
Bob Eichenberg, Planning Director with the Regional Planning Commission. As I was telling Tony earlier, I've had to get up to speed a little bit on condo development too, because it's just not something we've seen in the county very much. But the research I've done which is in part Section 5311 of the Ohio Revised Code. That's the section on condominiums. And of course, you're going to want to get a legal opinion from Gary, it sounds like. But there's specific language in there, and I'll just read it. Neither the submission of property to the provisions of this chapter, 5311, nor the conveyance or transfer of a condominium ownership interest constitutes a subdivision within the meaning of or subject to Chapter 711, which is the subdivision section. And there's one of my concerns was the definition of subdivision, or one of the definitions of subdivision, is when you're setting aside land for easements for utilities or roadways, public or private. That is technically a subdivision under Ohio law. But this section 531102 specifically exempts condominiums from subdivision. And in section 531103, there is mention that each, I'll just read this too, each residential and commercial unit in the condominium shall have a direct exit to a public street or highway, to a common element leading to a public street or highway, or to a permanent easement leading to a public street or highway. So they specifically mention in here easements within this development, but still exempt it from the subdivision rule. So it'd be my opinion that you could have a condominium with some easements in there for utilities or access that still wouldn't make it a subdivision because it's specifically exempted from that. And I brought those sections too, Joe. I'll just give
Okay.
you these.
Well, I'm never comfortable with doing things out in the plains from here, so it's just, what are we supposed to do here? All right. Questions?
And I think that's why I'm here, to find out, the proper channels, trying to go through each committee and commissions and agencies and, try to find out what I need to do to proceed.
Have you established the form of the condominium association at this point? Have you, well, there are different types. They can either have, the ownership of all the property in common, or you can own different types of condominiums. You own different portions of it.
Right.
You can either own just from the drywall in,
Yeah,
or
we
you
do
can
have a
own.
declaration that we have put together establishing the boundaries of each individual unit that we have put together, a declaration,
That might affect, a decision on whether this is covered or not.
Okay, I can get you guys a copy of what we've put together, if that's what you need.
Is there any common property that's owned, that would be owned by the association in general?
Yes, there will be some common areas, yes.
And the detention pond?
Yeah, that would be a common area.
And
That
the
would be-
association will be responsible for maintenance of it?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, basically the roads, what he alluded to basically would be the roads, the detention pond, any other common areas such as there'll be the private grounds, the sidewalk areas, and basically the outside of all the units would be common elements, and according to definition, from the walls inside would be what you would own as far as your condominium, and everything on the exterior would become a common element.
So exterior painting and roofing and stuff like that?
That would all be
done by the
association, that's right.
How wide are these streets that go through here and here?
Scale on here for you. I think they're 22 feet, if I'm not wrong. Get better. they're 22 feet is what they are. These were, they're basically, right here we go, we got 20 feet. So these are basically garages back here, and it's kind of like an alleyway, you know, to put your cars in. You know, and then the fronts of these buildings, this would be a green space area. You know, then you go into like an alleyway back in here for the parking, and then green space, you know, when you're coming into the project. Then you go back into here, this would be a green space area right here, and then overflow parking has been taken into consideration for the units.
And then it goes out to a public street.
Yeah, this is
where?
First Street right here in the Plains.
So do we know if this is subject to subdivision regulations or not?
Well, he doesn't think so,
It
but
isn't by
Yeah.
what,
I don't think so either,
Yeah.
It has no public streets, it has no,
no.
so I don't think it really does. I mean, I think there has to be something in the record or somewhere with it saying that's the way it's going to be for all time. I mean, because somebody can't be able to have a low condominium fee association thinking, oh, the county will come along and fix this road.
Right.
That ain't going to happen. And believe me, these potholes get expensive.
So I guess that's why I'm here in front of you guys today to it was recommended.
I think it
that-
would require a PUD, it might require a PUD or something if it was in the city, because we have zoning.
Right.
Plains doesn't have zoning. It's the only reason we have the 3-mile limit.
Right.
That even comes before us, but with the lack of zoning, I don't think the subdivisions really will kick in when you don't use public infrastructure.
Right. Well, and
That's
according
that's
to
just my
the
opinion.
Ohio Revised Code, like
Yeah.
Bob had mentioned, 5311, you know, would constitute it not.
Right. I don't think it does. But we appreciate the information.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, I guess basically, before I can proceed with the county commissioners, you know, they had recommended that I get something in writing from Steve Pearson, and Steve had directed me to you guys.
Right.
So I guess what I'm looking for is some kind of a sign off on this saying
Well,
that.
probably just need a motion that would indicate that with the, what is it, the village of Castle Pines now does not fall under the, in our opinion, does not fall under the Athens City subdivision regulations, as it has no public infrastructure, and the intent is that it will remain private infrastructure maintained at the association, condominium association's cost. And send it on its way.
I second that.
Okay. Third, you're third. Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye. That would be good enough for them.
Because they only can get a copy of the minutes. Send them a copy
appreciate
of the
your time.
minutes.
Certainly.
Thank you.
Okay, here, this goes with that. I put that with that. That's our last case. Now, communications, do we have any communications? No, I don't think we got any new communications, did we? Unless somebody has one. Nobody has one. Announcements and other business. Do we have any announcements and other business?
Well, I would say that we do have our law director with us now, and if we wish to, after we
have it.
have the comment for,
Opportunity.
do we want to go
Do we
into
have-
executive session with our law director? We can do that.
that would be good.
Do we
That'd
have,
be good.
okay, do we have any citizens who wish to speak about items not covered on the agenda? No. I always look at him. Okay,
I move that we go into executive session with the law director to discuss matters
Okay.
under litigation.
Second.
second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Roll call, okay.
Aye.
Aye.
Abel, aye.
Aye.
Then we'll give
Picky,
the, while we give
picky.
the camera people a couple